We have seen how to generate white light by different methods by using two different colors, dichromatic, monochromatic, and pentachromatic, etc., etc. And there is one more way to generate white light, which is using something called as wavelength converters. So the learning objectives of this lecture is to understand the generation of white light based on wavelength converters. We also try to understand how to calculate the efficiency of this white light generation using wavelength converters, and we'll try to see a small description on the possible usage of phosphor as a white wavelength converter material. So, so at the end of the lecture, we would try to understand all these points. Okay. Now coming to the working. So till now we have seen that whenever you want to produce a white light, you will have, for example, if it's a dichromatic white light, we will have in our substrate two active layers, one which will produce a wavelength, the next active layer will produce a complementary wavelength. So when you see the mixed version of the wavelength and the complementary wavelength, then finally you end up seeing as a white light. So that is the typical white light generation that we have seen in the last lecture. Here, using wavelength converter is a totally different approach. So what do you mean by a wavelength converter? So wavelength converter is a material which absorbs white light of a particular wavelength and emits light of a different wavelength. Okay, so it has a specific kind of material. Not every material can do this conversion. So some materials, when it is incident by a wavelength of particular wavelength, let's say lambda 1, it will absorb the wavelength and emit light of a different wavelength. So for example, lambda 2. Usually lambda 1 will be less than lambda 2. Okay. And the example of a wavelength converter is a phosphor. Phosphor-based wavelength converters are used in generation of white light. Okay. Now, most white light emitter use an LED emitting at short wavelength and a wavelength converter. So, in this type of white light generation, you will have one LED, or basically you will have inside one LED, there will be small chip which will be emitting some wavelength, for example, blue wavelength. And there will be the phosphor material inside the same chip, which will absorb this wavelength and emit light of a different wavelength. For example, if this is blue which is generated, the phosphor will absorb this wavelength and generate a yellow light. So finally, when it comes out of this LED, you will see a white light. Okay. So it will absorb the shorter wavelength and emit a higher wavelength. Okay. Now, some of the light emitted by blue LED is absorbed in the converter material and then re-emitted as light with a longer wavelength. Usually we use the shortest of the possible, which is violet or blue, to generate the first LED light, which can be absorbed. Okay. So as a result, the lamp emits at least two different wavelengths. Okay. It need not be that it will only emit yellow. For example, if you have an LED with blue, okay, and let's say I have two different versions of phosphor. So this will emit blue. This phosphor will absorb this blue and emit, for example, green. And this will absorb blue and emit, for example, red. So all these possible combinations you can have inside this LED. The generation of white light by a semiconductor LED whose light is partially or fully used to optically excite one or several phosphors is a viable and common method to generate white light for general illumination applications. So usually the white light is used for illumination purposes where we want to see. And the last point actually summarizes the above bullets, which says that you can use one or several phosphors which can be used to absorb or which will get excited by a shorter wavelength, producing a longer wavelength finally end up giving the combination of two, which is a white light. So if you look at the different approaches to generate white light based on phosphorus, you see this diagram we have already seen, a similar diagram we have already seen in the previous lecture. So this is a bit of a different one, not exactly same. So you can have a dichromatic white source, means you can have two different wavelengths generated. For example, you can have a blue LED, which gives the wavelength in this region, and then you can have an yellow phosphor, which is this. So the blue light emitted will be absorbed by this yellow phosphor. It will emit an yellow light, which when comes out of the LED will be white. Okay, so this is one way. Now there is another option where you have blue LED and you can have yellow and red. So it will emit the corresponding colors, which will finally end up giving the complete white light. Similarly, you can have trichromatic white source, where instead of emitting a visible light, it will emit a UV light. The LED will emit a UV light, and there are three phosphor regions: this one, and this one. So this UV light will be absorbed by each of these phosphors. For example, this can be blue, red, and green. So when this emits light, the final combination of the light coming out of the LED will be white. Or else you can have blue and red LEDs plus green phosphor. So there can be a green phosphor and there is a blue and red LED. So both these wavelengths will be absorbed by this phosphor emitting green light. So the combination of blue, red, green will give you white. Is it stuck for everybody? Are you able to see my pen movement and the just I have drawn a line, so somebody had asked whether it is stuck. Okay, fine. So there is a tetrachromatic white source where you have four such scenarios, and in this scenario you have UV LED plus blue, cyan, green, and red phosphorus. So you have an UV LED light which will be used to absorb into the different phosphors and giving out white light. Similarly, you can have blue and red LEDs plus cyan and green phosphor. So these are all the different approaches where we can use the wavelength converters to generate white light. Now, the parameters that we have seen already, so there are different parameters which is used to find the efficiency. So this we have already seen. One is luminous efficiency, which is a measure of how well a light source produces visible light. Okay, and it is also the ratio of luminous flux to power measured in lumens per watt in the International Systems of Units. So this is the SI unit. So how well the light produces a visible light is the luminous efficiency. Similarly, there is something called as color rendering index. This also we have seen. It's a quantitative measure of the ability of a light source to reveal the colors of various objects faithfully in comparison with an ideal or natural light source. So if you consider an artificial light source and you consider a natural light source, for example, sun, and if you see which one gives a proper color, and you can compare the colors rendering, and the one which the artificial light source, if it renders a color which is almost equivalent to the natural color, then you can see the CRI is very high. Light sources with high CRI are desirable in color critical applications such as neonatal care and art restoration. Yes, these are all color critical applications. Now, how these parameters vary, this also we have seen in the last class. So luminous source efficiency decreases with increasing multichromaticity of the source. So if you use dichromatic sources, which has only two wavelengths, it has high luminous efficiency. And as you increase the number of wavelengths, if you go for tri, tetra, and penta, the luminous source efficiency will decrease. So dichromatic sources have the highest luminous efficiency of radiation and also the highest potential luminous source efficiency. Okay? But the color rendering capability is lowest for dichromatic sources and increases with multichromaticity of the source. So color CRI value is exactly opposite to that of luminous efficiency, where if you have dye or if the chromaticity is less, you will have high color rendering capability, and if the chromaticity is more, you will have high color rendering capability. So basically, the tetrachromatic light sources will have high color rendering capability. Now we look at the efficiency of wavelength converter materials. Efficiency means like if you produce one particular wavelength, how much power is the or how much efficient is the net output, net white light output. Okay, the conversion efficiency of short wavelength light to long wavelength light by a wavelength converter material is determined by two distinct factors. Basically, we are producing a short wavelength. It will be absorbed by the phosphor to convert it to long wavelength, and the efficiency of this will depend on two factors. The first one is called external quantum efficiency of the wavelength converter. The second one is the inherent quantum mechanical energy loss incurred in wavelength conversion. In the first case, we have also already seen the quantum efficiency. Okay, so how much amount of produced light is available to the visible or is available to the outside world is basically external quantum efficiency. And there's an inherent quantum mechanical energy loss while wavelength conversion. Okay, so this will be a property of a material, for example, the phosphor, or it can be a property of how you have fabricated the LED. The external quantum efficiency of the converter material is given by the number of photons emitted into the free space by the wavelength converter per second divided by the number of photons absorbed by the wavelength converter per second. Okay, so for example, when you create the blue light, let's say you created a blue light of 100 photons. The phosphor will absorb the 100 photons per second, and let's say generated the yellow light, the yellow phosphor generated an yellow light of about, let's say, 80 photons, because some of its energy will be used or dissipated inside the material. So the basic efficiency is then by 80 by 100. That is the external quantum efficiency. The external efficiency originates in the internal efficiency and extraction efficiency of the converted material. Okay, this we have already seen. So internal efficiency is, you can say, how much amount of transition from conduction band to valence band is creating a spontaneous emission or emission to light. That is internal efficiency. Now, external extraction efficiency is, we have seen that if you have the fabricated light source with an active region, we have seen that some of this light emitted will be reflected back because of the total internal reflection. Some of this will be absorbed by the material. So the net light coming out will not be exactly same as that is generated. So the extracted light which is coming out will be less, and this is given as extraction efficiency that we have seen, I think, at the basics of LED class. So the product of these two will give you the external efficiency. The inherent wavelength conversion loss, sometimes called as quantum deficit or stock shift, incurred when converting a photon with wavelength lambda1 to a photon with wavelength lambda2 is given by. So this is called as the wavelength conversion loss. Is the difference of the wavelength or the energy created, for example, the blue LED, minus the energy created by the emission of the wavelength converter. Okay, so this, for example, this is lambda1 is the generated wavelength. For example, the blue LED, and lambda2 is the wavelength converter. Okay. Now, so the wavelength conversion efficiency can also be written as eta lambda conversion is the ratio of the generated, the ratio of the wavelength converted, energy of the wavelength conversion to that of the energy of the emitted wavelength, emitted light. Okay, so that is basically H will get cancelled, C will get cancelled, you get lambda 1 by lambda 2. Where lambda 1 is the wavelength of the photon absorbed by the phosphor, and lambda 2 is the wavelength of the photon emitted by the phosphor. So that will give you the conversion. The power conversion efficiency of a wavelength converter is a product of wavelength conversion efficiency and external efficiency, which we have seen in the previous slides. So this is equal to this, which is lambda 1 by lambda 2. So I can write this as eta external into lambda 1 by lambda 2. So this is eta lambda converter. You can write in terms of the wavelength absorbed and the wavelength emitted by the phosphor. So this is the efficiency of the wavelength converter materials. So if you look at the wavelength converter materials commonly available, the most common is phosphor. There are other materials like dyes and other semiconductors, but the most commonly used wavelength converter material is phosphor. The phosphor displays an absorption band and a low energy emission band. So the phosphor will absorb the wavelength and also it will emit the wavelength. So it has a range of wavelengths it can absorb, which will give you the absorption band. And there's a range of wavelengths which it will emit, which will give you the emission band. And emissions are of lower energy. The emission band is rather broad, making this particular phosphor suitable for white light emission. The emission band is broad means it can emit wavelengths of from very low value to very high value, which we can use it to create white light because white light is a combination of all these wavelengths. We will see the spectrum. The phosphors are very stable materials and can have quantum efficiencies close to 100%. That is a very important point because you can have an efficiency close to 100% means the maximum energy can be produced from these LEDs. If you look at the absorption and emission spectra of phosphor, you see that this is the absorption spectra, which means this is the wavelength which the phosphor absorbs. And this is the wavelength the phosphor emits. You can see that this is very broad. It ranges from around 400 nanometer to around 750 nanometer. Okay, and the emission spectra is small. So this we have plotted only for visible light. You see that this till 300 nanometer, starting from around 200 nanometer. So the phosphor will absorb all the wavelengths which is in this region, and it will emit all the wavelengths in this region. Okay, and you can see the intensity of the light. So you can see the maximum intensity is happening around 250 nanometer absorption. The maximum intensity here is happening around 600 nanometer for emission. Okay, so if you can fabricate such a material which can absorb at 250 nanometer and emit at 600 nanometer, that will give you the maximum efficiency. So the phosphorus actually consists of an inorganic host material doped with an optically active element. The phosphor is not like a pure phosphor, but it has some amount of doping which will help it to make it optically active. And the common hosts are called as garnets. And it has a chemical formula A3B5O12, where A and B are chemical elements and O is oxygen. For example, yttrium aluminum garnet, that is called as YAG, has formula Y3Al15O12, is particularly common host material. Now the phosphors having YAG as a host material are called YAG phosphors. So this is a commonly used phosphorus that is used for developing white light. Now if you come to phosphorus converter, basically the A part gives you the LED structure. This is a fabrication process. So in A part, the LED die emitting in the blue and the YAG phosphor surrounding the die. So there is a small LED chip here, which is this one. This will emit blue light. Okay, and there's a, you can see a small square shaped thing here, like this. And inside it, it is filled with phosphor. Okay, and that is enlarged version is actually this one. So this is basically the LED chip. Okay, and it will be filled with phosphor. This is all phosphor. So when the blue light is emitted, this will be absorbed by the phosphor, and there's a phosphorescence, which means it will generate its own wavelength. The YAG phosphor can be made as a powder and suspended in the epoxy resin. So this is the resin. Okay. So during the manufacturing process, a droplet of the YAG phosphor suspended in the epoxy is deposited on the LED die, so that the resin fills the cup-shaped depression in which LED die is located. Okay, this is a very small structure. So to fill this resin, you just need a one drop of phosphor. It will fill this resin where the LED chip or the LED die is there. So when you give the voltage in the LED chip will generate the blue light, and the phosphor will absorb the blue light, convert it to yellow or any of its, depending on the phosphorescence. The combined light will be traveling out of the LED, which is white. So a fraction of blue light is absorbed by the phosphor and re-emitted as longer wavelength light. Okay, so this is how the phosphor converters work. If you look at the emission spectrum of the phosphor, so you can see that there is high intensity of blue, because blue light always gives a maximum luminous efficiency, which will give high power. And the phosphorescence has a much broader spectrum. But the power generated by phosphorescence is less. So you will not be able to get exact white light. You will have a blue tinted white light because the blue has higher power. So you will see a white light, but you feel like it has a bluish white. Okay? So if you look at the chromaticity coordinate, which we are seeing, the coordinate will be somewhere here, and you can see it is a white with bluish tint. If it was somewhere here, it would have been exactly white. But since it is near to the blue spectrum, so this is actually the blue part. We have seen this in the last class. And you can see that because of it near to the blue, you will have a white light, but with a bluish tint. Tint means a bluish color. Okay, so that is regarding the chromaticity coordinate. Okay, fine. So that's all from today's class. I hope you have understood this. I will upload this slides also.